The 2025 Trust Fund is predominantly, first and foremost, a fund that will support the future of the creative industry. Right now, in the heart of this pandemic, governments are giving money out to support. There are organisations that have set up a lot of funds for immediate use. Some of the government stuff has missed people and businesses. Some of them, the funds that are available don't quite cover everyone. But it's for the immediate use. The 2025 Trust Fund is specifically for the future. On a personal level, I believe that we should never, as an industry, come to this point again. The 2025 Trust Fund has a double barrel. First and foremost, it is a grant fund, okay, and it is done on a two-stage application. The first stage, it comes from local theatre, and it's important that it comes from local theatre to local organisations. A lot of funding that we have these days are done on national or charities that don't really know the local and how it really works. So you'd be able to apply for the fund, £500 to £5,000 from your theatre. So what happens? Let me talk you through the stages of the grant fund process first. So you put your application into the theatre. There is a board that will be made up of a cross-section of your community. So that's somebody from the theatre, probably somebody from health, somebody from education, maybe somebody from the council, but there's a cross-section. And there may even be a business or two on that board. And they decide if you are eligible for the grant that you are asking for. And there will be a very strict criteria. Okay, you must follow that criteria, and it must be done strictly. The criteria will be made available in the latter part of 2021. But there will be a very strict criteria. Okay, and you will need to make sure that you've covered that, and you have evidence that you've covered that. So on the grounds that you have proven that you are eligible, and yes, we think you should be awarded it, the local board says, your application is sent to a central board. Now the power of this central board is very limited. They cannot turn down an application on site. So where at local level they may go, actually, no, we're not going to let you have this fund. There is only two things. There's only one way the central board can stop an application, and that is if you have not met the criteria. Now, let me explain to you why we have two stages. First stage is coming from local theatres. Now we have 1,500 theatres in the UK. 1,500 theatres in the UK. Every one of those theatres is going to do something slightly different. So you need a central story to be able to make sure that everybody's doing it the same. Okay? And make sure that criteria is being met in the same way. So the central board will gather your application and will go, right, okay, yes, it's there, but we need that little bit more evidence to prove that you've done it. So they may go back to the original board, local board, and go, can you provide me with a little bit more evidence to show that we've actually hit this criteria? also, it's about making sure that the paperwork is filled in correctly and everything is there that was needed, so we don't miss something out. Because at a local level, and this is the danger of doing local stuff. Actually, there might be a shortcut. Somebody might take a shortcut. And they may not have done it intentionally, or something might have been left out of the envelope, or whatever. But it's ensuring it's all there in one go. Make sure nothing's left. Once everything's there, the amount of all the evidence is there, the criteria's been met. It's just a case of signing it off and go, let's get it. If it's clear the criteria's not been met, that's the only time that central board will reject. So it just stops shortcuts. It ensures everything stays. Everybody, whether you are in the north, the south, Midlands, you're going to get the same level, the same benchmark, if you will. There's a second thing that these boards, both local and national boards, will be looking for. That special talent that doesn't fall into our criteria, but certainly deserves financial support. Okay. And there's much of that around this country, around the world. There is so much talent that I can tell you that if we had the criteria, and most criteria of funding, they just don't fall into, but the talent's there, but you just can't make a move, and that's what we're looking for. Okay. And it's about gathering what they need. It's not necessarily saying to them, we're going to give you money. Sometimes it might be a case of collecting intelligence, and then somebody from the board, or a celebrity or something, making something of it, and going out and going, do you know what? We've heard about you and your talent. We heard that you struggled to get where you want to be. Here's something that might help you. So that is the funding. That is how the grant fund basically works. If we ever come to this point again, as we have in a pandemic, it also becomes an emergency fund. That emergency fund would mean that all applications for grants at local boards, the work for the local boards would all be suspended. The central board would turn its attention then to the unions, the other organisations that support us and work with government, and we look to find where we can fill in. That fund then works to fill in gaps where government schemes just miss people, like in the current coronavirus pandemic. It's missing out freelance, and it's not just in our industry, it's across the board. There are some businesses within the theatres and organisations that can't access the fund because they don't fall into the government's criteria. And so it becomes an emergency fund. We hope we never have to use it as an emergency fund, but that is how it will be, and it will all be written up exactly how individuals and organisations can access it, but it will be done, the whole package, as a grant fund and as an emergency fund. Everybody will know what will trigger the emergency fund. Everybody will know how to access, or the criteria you need to access it as a grant fund. But obviously, like every fund, it needs to be able to have an income. Well, what our aim now, or my personal aim now for this fund, is to raise £2.5 million minimum before 2025 for it to open out, for that fund to open. I've opened up a Just Giving page. There's also, it can be done through PayPal. On my website, you can access both of those. But not only have I put that in place, this fund, the 2025 Grant Fund, or Trust Fund, which at the moment is a working title, it may change when we get to 2025. This fund has its own event, fundraising event attached to it, and that's called Community Spirit, and that is one day, just one day, to celebrate the arts in the local community. It's like an Edinburgh Festival, but right there on your doorstep. And anybody across the 5 pillars of the arts, that's literacy, visual, performing, multi-skilled, and others, can partake. And just like the Grant Fund, it's not just for theatre, it's for all 5 pillars, and that is why there's a cross-section of your community. So go to our page, go to the website, which is in the description, and donate. And let's make the 2025 Trust Fund the best fund available to the arts, from the arts. It's not controlled by government, it is only controlled by the industry. So the access to the funds becomes so much quicker. Come and join us.